Well, today's conversation is all about purpose. And so I've invited some of my most purposeful friends. So I'll start over to my right. I got Carlene, who is in charge of our guest services here at Central. So awesome to have you. And Rodrigo is brand new to staff here as well. Newer to our church, newer to our country, but is an amazing volunteer, amazing staff member, support team. And Trudy as well, who's part of our board. And just an absolute legend. And we love Trudy. So glad to have you with us. And Nico, who's also a part of our next gen. So thank you so much, guys, for being with us today. Today, we're continuing in our series called You're Not Far. And I love this principle that you're not far from living a life of purpose. You know, I love that idea that you're literally one step away from a momentum shift, one step away from something being better in your family, your friends, your sphere of influence. And so today we're going to talk about how do you do that? What does that look like? What have you learned about living a life of purpose? And I think one of the best ways to measure that is through our time, our talent, our treasure. So we're going to kind of frame it through that. And so I want to start by talking about time. So Trudy, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, but I heard it said recently, somebody said, there's no such thing as work-life balance. There's only values and there's priorities. And I really like that concept. And I know you're probably one of the more busy people that I know. But I love how you use your time so purposefully. So why don't you talk a little bit about purpose and how do you navigate your time?
That's a good question. I am busy. I always say, oh, I'm not that busy, but I am. And I work full time. But I also feel I get value from serving and volunteering. And I think that's part of a gift that God has allowed me to share with others and allow me to be a mentor to others as well, or in a very small format. But I think the balance is looking at your work life, your family life, your prayer life, your relationship with God, and where is God allowing you to navigate through all of those avenues that He's opened up for you. And He'll start laying on your heart whether you'll go to guest services or whether you go to the worship team or help with youth or, serve in any format, serve on the board, any format. But I think it's when He really allows you to open up to what the desires are in your heart. So I used to think, administration wasn't a gift or it wasn't a purpose because, you see people on the platform and you think, oh, I wish I could sing. Yeah, no. But it's like, my gifting is serving through administration, for example, or just, looking at young moms and thinking, how can I help them? Inviting them into your home. That is a massive thing that I have learned through COVID is just inviting people into your heart, into your home, having a coffee with them, even Zoom meetings, having a Zoom meeting during COVID. We had to have Zoom meetings. But I think it's not the amount of being busy, it's the amount of the purpose that God is laying out for you. So it could be as simple as a text. Especially for the youth, start off as a text, because that's God has laid somebody on your heart. And if you don't step out and even pray for that person or text that person, then it's almost like, oh, you're missing out on something. And I think getting involved in such a spectacular church that has many avenues to be involved in, if you start doing little baby steps, the purpose becomes bigger. And the eyes are not on you, it's on the purpose of what God is laying out, the foundation for you.
Well, and I like what you said too, it's not just the big things, it's sometimes a simple text, it's a checking in, how are you doing, I was thinking of you, and you didn't have to do that, but you did that because you thought of it and you were, obedient in that moment. Carlene, I want to talk to you a little bit because I know you love people and spending time with people. I think COVID, really taught us a lot about how we spend our time. And so talk to me a little bit about, for you, when it comes to what's been your takeaway through COVID around how you spend your time? How do you divide it? What do you focus on? What have you learned kind of through this last season?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think before the last couple of years, I was always rushing from one thing to another. And you sometimes do that subconsciously and it just becomes your lifestyle and your pattern, and you fill up your days so full that sometimes you forget why they're so full.
Yeah.
And I feel like COVID sort of allowed me the opportunity to rethink how I'm living every day. And I was able to exhale. And the serenity thing.
Let's just do that right now, everyone.
Yeah, we can do that.
Everybody's
together.
watching. Okay.
There we go. But for me, it just helped me to be able to sort of reorient my priorities in terms of what is important. And the fact that I could still connect with people, even when we had lockdowns, even when we couldn't see people. It took more effort, and I like the in-person stuff so much better. It's so much more rewarding, but it was like, how can we still keep up relationships? How can we still do that? So I felt like I just invested all that I could into that aspect. And it still didn't feel as busy or full, but it felt so rich and so rewarding to just take those and kind of shift my mindset a little bit in that aspect. So, I feel like I haven't gone back.
I like
It's
that.
changed that for me.
Yeah, adjusting priorities to the things that matter the most. That's awesome. Do you guys want to jump in on that one? You want to skip to the next one? Okay. You're still learning about time? Okay. Awesome. Okay, I want to shift then gears a little bit. I want to talk about your talents. And I love how the Bible talks a lot about gifts. And, there's multiple times it talks about the idea of gifts for the purpose of building up others. And I know this is where you're actually so good at this too, but, just the idea that this is what they're for, to build up one another and to pour out into people. So I want to talk a little bit, Rodrigo, about what's been the greatest life lesson you've learned about using your talents, because you're an incredibly talented person. But not only bass, but just the way you serve other people. But talk to me about what you've learned about using your talents for God.
I'm completely sure that God has given us talents, but inside them are a huge purpose. And I learned that I put that purpose when I serve others,
Yeah.
When I serve others, I'm doing that purpose that God has for me.
Yeah.
And my biggest thinking on this is God doesn't need us to do whatever He wants, but He still wants and He loves working with us and through us.
Wow.
And when we are thinking in that way, everything that we are doing with grateful heart.
Yeah.
That could be my biggest thinking. Serve others.
Wow. That's amazing. He doesn't need us. He wants us.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Nico, can you talk to us a little bit about the next gen? Like when you think of your dreams for the next generation, what would you want them to know about their talents that God has given them?
I think one of the things I hear about a lot is people who don't think they're talented. People somehow have this idea that when God was creating every individual person, they got skipped in the line.
Right.
And my one thing, if I can tell every young person in the world, I would, is you are given talents and you are made on purpose and for a purpose.
Yeah.
And so the talents that God has given you, they might not be, something obvious on a stage. Maybe you'll never preach a sermon or, sing on a worship team or play guitar. Yeah. But God has actually gifted you with something specific. And it could be for someone who's in your life right now to hear, maybe for the first and only time, and see, a little bit of the way that God sees them.
Yeah.
My main thing would just be, don't let it go to waste. Yeah. And recognize you have a beautiful purpose in your life. You do. You just have to take the step. Wow. And so I'm still working on that myself and figuring out, what God has for me. I'm still young. I'm still in that next gen. And so I think every day I just remind myself, God's given me the tools I need for today, and He's gifted me with something. So let's use it to do something good in the world.
That's powerful. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest lies that has sort of the enemy has probably used around the idea that there's only some that are gifted, some are talented. It's only those people. And that's such a lie because every single one of us has been given a gift. You also have so many people that you probably have some of the most amount of volunteers in our church. Talk to us, what have you learned and kind of grown around this area of gifts? What have you observed around using your talents for God?
Well, I absolutely love the opportunity to be able to join together with a group of like-minded people to be able to work towards a common vision.
Yeah.
And for me, that is just like, it's one of the most beautiful things to see in action. And I came across this quote. This is so good. This is so good.
All right, we're ready.
Okay, this is gonna be the mic drop moment. Okay, so, okay, if you're offered a seat on a rocket ship, you're not gonna ask which seat you're gonna get on. You're just gonna get on, right? I mean, it's just like when you're serving together, it is such a beautiful thing. It's like, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you're serving and we're doing it together. We're going someplace. We're going someplace really special and really powerful. And, that old saying, like, if you don't care who gets the credit, you go a lot farther.
Yeah.
And when you all do it together, everybody wins.
Yeah.
And the more that people jump in, I think for our serving experiences and guest services particularly, what I've noticed is the more people that start to join the team, like the newer ones, like they are loving it. The ones that have been here a long time, they love it. But as the new ones come in, like a light goes on and they're like, I love this, and so it just makes me want to encourage other people to say, you don't know what you're missing. Just give it a try and let's do something special together. Because it's an important mission that we're on,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I feel like if you come to Central, you can like coming, but when you get involved, it's like it switches, it changes. You love it because these are the people you do life with, and they're thinking about you, and they're texting you, and they're spending their time and their talents on just doing something meaningful together.
It's the difference between being a spectator and a team player.
Yeah.
You get so much more value out of being a team player.
Yeah, that's true.
So.
I love that. Okay, I want to switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about our treasure. And I love how Jesus talks about it. Jesus, one of the things he says in Matthew 6, he says, don't lay up for yourself treasures on earth where moth and rust can destroy, but instead lay up for yourself treasures in heaven. It says, for where your heart is, there your treasure is also. So I love that concept. And, I talk about it a lot, but growing up, my dad, I remember he specifically, he said to me, Justin, if you can learn to be generous when you're young, it'll be easy when you're old. He's like, I had to learn when I was old. And he's like, it was so hard. He's like, if you learn when you're young, it'll be easy when you're old. So I want to talk a little bit about just the journey of generosity. Nico, maybe we'll start with you. Let's talk about when you think of our young people, our next generation, kids, youth, young adults, what would you want them to know about generosity?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And this is a journey that I feel like I've been on for a large portion of my life, similar to what your dad said. My dad, it was a non-negotiable that we were going to be generous with what we had. And I think it actually starts with the heart posture. And it's that idea of don't store up for yourself. So it doesn't say don't have treasure.
Yeah.
It's just if you have treasure, use it for the right things.
Right.
And so often I feel like we use it for the wrong things, or we, choose to value certain items. And if we would change the value spectrum from I own this to how can I use what God has actually given me to enhance the lives of the people around me? Because in the end, I believe that the church's main purpose is actually to make the world around it a little bit better. Whether that's our city, our family, our school, whatever. And I say it every week to our youth. But if you have a treasure or a talent or time, if you can use it to make the world better, I think you're doing what God's asking you to do. And so the journey to generosity is going to start small. Maybe you buy a coffee for a friend who, is having a tough day. But slowly but surely, you'll get to a place where it's second nature. And now there's times where I have found myself buying things for somebody and not even thinking about it. And I don't look at my bank account every day anymore because I just have come to understand that when I'm generous, God has actually always provided for me. So it gets rid of that fear, I guess, that need to store up things and hoard for myself because He's got it. It's not my money anyway.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I like that. That's pretty freeing
so
too.
Good.
You can trust. Trudy, talk to us a little bit about. You're on the board, and I'm sure you think about this a lot, being stewards of what we do as a church and how our church thinks about our resources and things like that. So if you had the floor, which I want to give you, what would you like?
may not want me to.
Yeah. What would you want people to know?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the main thing is that our church resources are, we think because we built this beautiful center, we have abundance. We don't, right? And I think sometimes our church can be, or church-minded can be, we're a little bit apprehensive about speaking about money or asking for money, or, they've already given a lot, especially my generation and older. We don't want to keep asking, but people are just waiting to be asked to give, and to give for a purpose. We've got this spectacular building, and you're right, being on the board, I think about it a lot. I pray about it a lot. There's staff that need to be paid. The building has to be heated. There's the youth, there's missions, there's life groups, which is, phenomenal, because that's how people get connected. There's the kids ministry, there's the child care, the daycare, the cafe, it goes on and on and on. And sometimes it can be a little overwhelming, but God has it. We just have to be generous. And, we see things around where you're like, well, this needs to be done, future projects, right? And we just have to allow God to say, step out in the faithfulness, because like Nico said, he provides. There's been many times in the last 10 years, or I've been coming to Central since 1988. So I've seen times where the church has had nothing and God has provided. And those people who have provided, they have been provided for. I know even for ourselves, like even giving extra, during the time of the building, our kids were going to university. And it was like, how on earth are we going to step out? But God provides. And you just step out a little bit, give a little bit extra. And He is faithful. And sometimes it's not even, He doesn't give back in necessary monetary value, but He gives back in the peace of knowing that you're doing His work. Or you may have a bill that needs to be paid. All of a sudden it's paid. Or groceries are dropped off at your door. All of a sudden it's there. So I think for our church itself, we are in a time where I really feel God is going to explode in this place. And we have a community that needs Him. And it's not about rules and regulations, and it's not even about the building. It's about our heart and our mindset. And we have a community that needs Him. We have a world that needs the love of Jesus. And I think this church is really the hands and feet of Jesus. So the more that we're generous with our finances in order to flourish the kingdom, the more we're going to be blessed. And whether it's a piece of heart, or whether it's a need for our children, whatever that, or a senior parent, whatever that may be, I honestly believe that if we're faithful, He is going to be faithful. And I've seen it in our own lives. But yeah, it is worrisome. It is worrisome.
But the cool thing is God's got it.
God's got it.
When we trust Him, and like you said, the heart, it's a heart perspective.
It's a heart perspective, yeah.
Wow.
And He does. He will provide. And He's provided this spectacular building. And it is His building. It's not ours. It's His. So those finances will come in. I am assured. I have a piece about that. But I think everybody needs to be part of the kingdom. And everybody needs to be part of His love in order for this church to expand even greater.
Anybody else want to pipe in on that one?
I remember that since day one, my wife and I, we decided to give honor to God with our finances and with our tithes and offerings. And I'm completely sure that it was one of the most powerful decisions that we made. Because after that, we have seen God working and providing everything that we need. Everything. And it's like you are not following the blessings of God. The blessings of God are following wherever you go, wherever you are. blessings are around you. And there are a lot of testimonies of what God has doing in our marriage, specific and in the finances area. And I'm completely sure that the people need to know that, because actually He is the owner of everything that we are.
Yeah, it's true.
And we say, hey God, you are the owner of my life, but okay, my money I want to keep on my pocket.
Right.
But there is not. It's His money actually. And when we know that, we put our heart in the correct way to give. And there is a way that the church and we can make the kingdom of God build every day.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So good.
Can I pipe in? You good?
I do have a thought, actually.
I knew you did. I knew it.
Picking it up.
I knew it.
Well, you know, there's one time in the Bible that God asks us to test Him, and it's in the area of giving.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
He says this. He says, see if I will not throw open,
Yeah.
I believe is the actual
Yeah.
verbiage.
Yeah.
See if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven when you give. And that is the one time He invites us to test Him.
Yeah.
The one time. So if that's the only time He actually challenges us, I'm pretty sure He's up for the challenge.
Yeah.
And I have seen that. I have
Yeah.
seen Him over and over. Like Bill and I have noticed, we can't help but notice
Yeah.
the incredible amounts of times that God has thrown open the floodgates of heaven when it's been hard.
Yeah.
I think people have the misconception sometimes that you should only give out of your surplus.
Right.
Yeah.
We actually give, when you give out of your need.
Yeah.
You give out of the things that you know you need,
Wow.
but that comes from the most raw, vulnerable place inside of you when you're at that moment. And when you give at that level, you know you're relying on God to help you. And you know that it's only His strength that's going to take you the rest of the way.
Yeah.
And we have seen that honored time and time again. I have no other explanation for the ways that we have seen it. It's just God has accepted the challenge. It's like the gauntlet was thrown down, and it was just like, you go, and it's just amazing. So I like to encourage people with that because I've seen it happen for us, and I know it can happen for anybody. So
As cool as all of you are talking, I just was imagining, just imagine if all of us took one step, one increment forward, whether it was one thing with our time, it was a text message, it was a coffee, it was we offered our talent to help somebody in need or get involved at church, or if we had $1, we gave $2, or if we had 1%, we gave 2, or if we had 10%, we did 11, whatever it is. If we took one step, like the impact we could have at the end of the day, like that's what it's all about. It's impacting people, the next generation, our friends, our family, our community. That's the space is all about that. So I thought, man, if we could get a hold of that, a few thousand of us, imagine what the world could look like, the region. And I think that's the heartbeat of all of it. So I want to just thank you guys for sharing your heart. And I just appreciate so much your willingness to just lead the way in generosity of your time, talent, and treasure. And I just know people are going to be impacted by everything you shared today. So thank you guys so much.
thank you.
Thank you for having us.